All right, welcome to Cedar Cat Studios, the single developer of these three games that you can see right here on my itch.io dashboard. So you could probably assume that I have very, very little video game development experience, but it's a hobby of mine that I've been enjoying, and I want to try and dive a little bit deeper into it. The Stinky Cat is actually a pretty fun game that I really enjoy. It's just a extension of the Brackeys My First Video Game endless or like cube runner game that I turned into an endless runner where you're trying to catch a stinky cat or you're a stinky cat trying to get away. And then Stronger Together was a Brackeys game jam submission, and Free Range is a My First Game Jam submission that I submitted just a little bit ago. But even though there's just these three games, I've actually been, on and off trying to get into game development for quite a while, but it wasn't until Stinky Cat where I was able to really see a game to its completion. And if you've seen a trend here, I've only finished a game when it's a game jam. I've started multiple Unity projects that I've never actually completed, and my engine of choice is Unity right now. But you can see there's quite a bit that I've never actually finished, but I've fooled around with, and it really seems that a game jam is the only thing that can really push me to complete a game. And the hard part about my journey right now is that it's kind of hard to find a game jam that I really like, and sometimes game jams can be a little too strict on time. And so I decided to go the route of creating my own, just personal game jam, which is going to be 6 games in 12 months game jam. Started this little, post right here, just explaining what this is, and also providing a link to the first of the 6 that I have created. That first one being Free Range. And I know in here I said that I was able to record myself the whole time. I very much was, but I am no editor, and I literally looked at all of the project files and just said no. I don't want to sit there and edit all of this. So I'm going to do a little bit differently and just try and take a post-mortem approach. We do these at work all the time, and I thought, you know what, why not do it for my hobby, where I'm pretty much just going to go through Free Range, the game that I developed for this 6 games, 12 months, and just see what I liked, didn't like, and, some roadblocks and pitfalls and successes that I encountered. So right off the bat, let's go right into Free Range here. And you can see this is how I split my editor up. I've got my scene editor, my game editor, and then I'll flip some things around. But let's just start by just playing it right off the bat. So I'm gonna hit play. All right, yeah, this music I just found on SoundCloud. That was a free download. It gets very annoying, but I thought it was good. It was a last second. I just needed music to fill it in, and you can see I got a Cinemachine camera going on here with a little too much wobble, but that was another one. It was just kind of a throw it on, but I've been a big fan of Cinemachine lately, and it just makes using cameras way easier. I just put in a quick little what your goal is, a little version of how to move. I also really like that in this I did the opening tutorial area allows you to actually walk around. You can do your little baka. You can also do your fart dash, which I actually got some playtest feedback that it really doesn't actually make you go faster. I think it's 1 iota of a speed difference. I really wish that in the actual game I had time to build in a functionality to show a little health bar above the egg before you hatch it, so that you know when it's going to hatch actually. However, I ran out of time and I did not have time to do that. I spent a lot of time trying to figure out nav meshes with Unity, and I feel I did it pretty well with these chickens and the enemy AI eventually. But yeah, what I'd really like to do is, try and clean the starting UI up a little bit. This seems to be the last thing I always do. But I'd like to try and clean it up in a future project for sure. I've also reused these tile assets so many times. You can also see I've got text Text Mesh Pro here that makes button prompts on the UI really easy. Also, all of the assets I actually did not create. I have been fooling around with Blender quite a bit, but time crunch, I didn't want to do it. So these are all Unity asset store, low poly. Hello. You can actually see this clipping right here. Wow, that's bad. But yeah, it was all Unity asset store, low poly packs that I got. And I actually had a lot of fun piecing it together and just creating the scene. Obviously, I wanted to create like a bigger scene, but just didn't have the time and, wanted to get it in place. But the movement is I'm using the new Unity input system. So like I'm using WASD, I'm using the arrow keys. I'll go into the input system a little bit more. There's some things I want to work out in future games, but let's go ahead and just get right into it. Okay. So yeah, like right here, I wish I could have done like a little health bar to show. Also, I wish I did a little bit more work on how I'm like, what happens when the humans get knocked over. But there we go. We got the chick in the coop looking good. Yeah, and so how this is working is the nav mesh, the human's not able to go in the coop, but the chickens are. And there's actually like a coop manager that counts at the very end. You can see right here how many eggs are in versus how many are in the scene. And if the number of eggs in the coop matches the total in the scene, then you pass the level. If not, you don't pass it. So let's go to level 2, which through a lot of playtesters, aka my friends and family that were very supportive and played this, said was a very unfair level, which I would agree with because it is horribly, horribly hard. Yeah, there's no way you could beat this. It's really, really hard. All right, see, like right there, I wish I could have said like, oh, show you how it's actually how much is left for the time to hatch the egg. But you can see here that when you lose, if you don't have all of the eggs, it just lets you quit or try again. Let's try again one more time because I have beaten level 2 before, but it is quite tricky. See, like get out of here. Okay, there we go. Okay, let's go, chick. Maybe I should have had them like fall down a little bit. Oh, nice. Come on. Fall down a little bit longer. Come on. Oh my gosh, am I going to pass level 2? Ooh, clipped right through. But you know what? We passed. All right, I think we're going to actually be able to finish the whole game. All right, let's take this one. Shoot. I did not do this port. But I do know that I only put one spawn point in because it was short on time. And this is going to work out. All right, come on. Yeah, these humans are part of this like farm asset pack that I got. And the animals, the chickens, are a different asset pack that I got. You'll also notice that the restart level only works on level 1. That was a problem on my side for sure. I definitely didn't check that before publishing, but yeah, you could tell that a lot of this was just like last minute. All right, level 3. I think there's 5 levels in total. Get out of here, human. I'm also, wasn't hitting peck. You can also tell the animations are just a little clunky. And with nav meshes, I was noticing that it was really hard within Unity to work with nav meshes and rigid bodies. So like you'll notice that each time I like bacaw them over, I actually have to like manually turn on and then turn back off their rigid body kinematics. Which seems a bit clunky, and I feel like there's got to be a better way to do it, but something I'll look more into in future iterations of the game for sure. Yeah, I also wish I maybe spent a little bit more time on the spawns of the humans. Bring my egg back. Oh, jeez. Okay, we're looking good. Yeah, and then when the chick... It was also really hard to try and figure out how to get the humans to pick up the egg, and then if they drop the egg, it's still like viable for me to try and hatch. It was just something that like I think my inexperience did not help me there. But all right, come on, chicks. But no, I'm pretty proud of how I got the chicks to like follow the player into the coop, and then the coop manager will check, and here I think I'll beat the game. Nice, I beat the game. But yeah, so let's go into it a little bit more after the gameplay. Again, like I said, I really like the fact that I had this tutorial as a playable section. I tried to like keep my scenes as managed as possible, but you can see it gets very unwieldy, and it's just really hard when you're in like the creative space of just like populating the scene, of not letting this get out of hand. But it always gets out of hand. There's nothing you can really do. At least I don't think there is. But yeah, you can see the hen. I've got everything in here. Eggs have their own little objects as well. I'll go into the actual scripts themselves that I have down here. So starting off with the coop manager, like I said before, it's a pretty simple script of just like on trigger enter in the coop. It will, if the tag is egg child, then it'll say egg in coop, and it'll do ++ saved egg count. If it leaves, then it'll minus egg count. Egg manager is a little bit more fleshed out, where I've got an awake function, an update, on trigger stay. And the on trigger stay is how you actually hatch it. So what I'd probably do, because it checks for the player, is as well as updating the incubated time, because that's how I did it to actually like hatch the egg, I'd probably insert like a little bar here to just show that it's almost hatched or how much hatching is left. Function here for picking it up, or when the enemy picks it up, when the enemy drops, and when they actually hatch. I just do like a destroy eggshell. Enemy manager, I've got an awake function for their rigid body component and their game object. The nav mesh and is kinematic. Remember I said I gotta like turn it on and off all the time. And then I was not a big fan of this like start coroutine for when they like are pecked, because it like you kind of saw it didn't really feel fluid. So that's something that I'm really going to want to try and work on in a future game. Enemy nav mesh, this is pretty much heavily lifted from a previous game that I did, where essentially it's just looking for the closest enemy or closest egg, and then finding its way there and picking it up and walking to the spawn point. And you can actually see that if we go to like, let's go to level 2. So if we go to scenes, you can see I didn't structure this very well. Let's go to level 2. Yeah. Let's go out of 2D and let's go to enemy. Okay. Yeah, you can also see that in here I spent way too much time trying to like populate like different levels, but that never actually worked. But what we can see here, how the nav mesh works, is when we press play, there's 2 eggs in the scene, but this one is clearly the closest. So you'll see a little arrow pointing right at the egg, and you can see that the enemy is going to walk right over to that egg, and the second he picks it up, he's going to go right back to his spawn point. So that's how the nav mesh works, and there's some booleans attached too. So if the enemy doesn't have an egg, it'll look for one. If it does, it'll go back, and when you bacaw it out, it'll try and look for an egg again. But yeah, so that's the enemy nav mesh. Game manager is just pretty standard for start and ending of the game. Time scale just for when game is over, it'll pause the game. I've got a simple game over script that just says like you saved or you didn't save, how many eggs. Level loader, I pretty much copy and paste this every single game where I have levels. It just indexes the build index and goes to the next one. Player input. Well, first let's go to timer countdown. Pretty simple. It just counts down the seconds left. And the seconds left is a public integer, so we can set that for each level as how many seconds we want. But player input is the tricky child that I really was not the biggest fan of. Like I said, I used the new Unity input system, which I think is really great and completely scalable. But the problem that I have is all based around like when like the bacaw or the space bar for dash are pressed, how can I actually activate, an animation or an action? And so what I did is I found online somewhere, there's this like input action extensions for is pressed or was pressed this frame or was released this frame. And they worked a little bit, but not really well. Is pressed it's like you pressed it, and I didn't really see, you know, responsive times where like you press it and it thinks you're like still pressing it for a long time after. So I didn't really like that. I liked was press this frame because it was very clear, like you press it and that's it. And so that's the one that I use, as you can see. But if we like go back in, right, and I hit play, you'll see that like when I do Baka, so it does it, I press D, I press D, I press D again, I press D. So it's like a little bit delayed, and sometimes it doesn't actually work. So like maybe my like animation blending needed some work here, but it's definitely something that I want to try and like fix or flesh out further in a future game, because I do like the input system, especially like if I ever wanted to do mobile or something. Just making one game that has input actions for all different platforms would be amazing. So that's definitely something that I'm going to look into in a future game. But finally, I don't really think there was anything else jarring that I wanted to call out, but yeah, this post-mortem, I had a lot of fun putting this one together. I spend a lot of time just on my background. I like the programming aspect of it, but not the art is always like a last second thing, and sound is the absolute last. So what I want to try and do in the next game is really work on sound effects. So, you know, like maybe there's like a little like chicken like when it walks, or a when it paws, or maybe like a jet engine when it's dashing. Those are things that I wish I could have added. Even just when the game ends, maybe stopping the doot 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 music and doing something else that's a little more somber, because that like doot 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 over and over and over again looping kind of makes you mad. But yeah, maybe like focusing on next game, really trying to roll back the scope, because I had such lofty ambitions for this quick project, and maybe just bringing back the scope to a much more simpler game that I can really focus on, maybe more polish. So instead of trying to build out all of these systems, just focus on, okay, sound effects is something that I really want, and just polish overall. So you can see I've just like done this Roboto fonts, and there's just a lot here that I wish I could have polished, but I spent too much time on the wrong things, I think, that I would like to focus on a little bit more in the next game. And I'd like to try and model some of my own things. Like, no, I'm clearly not going to be able to model all of my own assets, but maybe like 1 or 2 is something that I'd like to focus on. But that will come for game 2 of the 6 games in 1 month. So yeah, I'll be dropping this right down here in this, devlog that I have going. And yeah, just using it as like a post-mortem as I go through my 6 games in 12 months game jam. I don't really have like a solid start date of when this happened. So I think it's, mid-July. I think I'll say, whenever this, what was it? My first game jam, whenever that game jam started, that's when I will say I started this game. So let's just go right now. Let's see. Where was it? Oh, geez. Okay, my first game jam. I think it was sometime in June. My first game jam, there it is. So it started June 26th. Okay, so that is officially when I'm saying the 6 games in 12 months game jam started. But yeah, I'm having a lot of fun doing this. It's a nice little break away from the, everyday job, and it's a nice creative outlet that I'm going to enjoy doing, but also want to try and work on getting better at as time goes on. But yeah, I'll keep providing updates. Thanks.